What's up, everyone? I'm Chris.
I'm Anthony.
And we are the Super Sports Bros. Now, you might be saying, hey, why are you guys doing it on video chat? Because I no longer live in the same state as Anthony, so we're doing it through video chat. This is our only way to do it, really.
Yeah, I'm glad we're doing it, too. It's a good way to stay in touch, and it's a good way to keep talking sports.
Yeah, and I mean, we took off last week because I was moving down to South Carolina, so there was, a little bit of a break in the action. However,
I apologize for our thousands of fans that might have missed us.
However, this is a great week for us to be coming back after a week off.
Oh, yeah.
Because
it was a crazy day with NFL free agency, and Islanders are playing the Rangers tonight for the final regular season matchup at the Coliseum.
Now, between last week and this week, a lot has happened in the NFL, and this is basically going to be an NFL special edition episode, more or less. Because
more or less.
Let's just get this started. Last week, there was a huge trade, and it involved basically almost every fantasy league's number one overall pick being traded to the Buffalo Bills, and that was LaShawn McCoy being traded up to Buffalo for Kiko Alonso, just straight up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know that you have some opinions. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's obviously more to it than the value that these players bring to the table. But there must have been some sort of beef Chip Kelly had with that's too many foods in one sentence. I think Chip Kelly had a problem with LaShawn McCoy, and I think that it was obviously something other than his play, because in the past 5 years he's led the NFL in rushing and he's been good. But even though it did seem like he might be slightly declining last year, it did not seem like it was something drastic enough to ship him off to Buffalo.
No, and from what I'm hearing is
who
that...
knows how we'll do in Buffalo.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it was
Exactly. And from what I'm hearing is that there was a little bit of a feud between Kelly and McCoy, which most likely ultimately led to this. And my biggest concern from Philly's aspect is Kiko Alonso played, I think, 1 or 2 games last year, if at all, because he tore his ACL. And it's very hard to ship off arguably one of your best players. No, not arguably, one of your best players, arguably your best player, for someone who is coming off of a major knee surgery.
Well, the Eagles got rid of... here's the thing. I don't think people should be considering this a trade. I think this was basically a release, and the Eagles were like, well, we might as well get something for him. Mm-hmm. I don't think it was anything that the Eagles had, desperately wanted Kiko Alonso. I think they figured, he went to Oregon, Chip Kelly knows him, and we'll get him and we'll give him a shot. Mm-hmm. But I think it was more of just canning LaShawn, similar to how they canned Deshaun Jackson last year. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean,
I don't know. I don't think Chip Kelly's a bad coach, but I don't think he's the type of guy you want to butt heads with. No. And I also think that their more recent move, in which they acquired Sam Bradford, earlier today they traded Nick Foles all the way to St. Louis to get Sam Bradford, also straight up. And I think that it was really just. It was a conditional pick as well.
There was a pick involved. I'm not sure what round it was, but St. Louis did send a draft pick as well.
Okay.
I think it was like a late round pick though, so it's not even.
It's not a first rounder. No. Yeah. So I think that it was really a straight up quarterback type of situation, and I think that it was. I don't think that Eagles are done trying to pursue Marcus Mariota, and I think that they may be informed, and some of the teams higher up on the draft board may be interested in Sam Bradford, which is weird considering Bradford has had a lot of injuries, but there might be some coach out there, some quarterback's coach out there that says, give me a chance with this guy. I could make it work. We don't know the ins and outs of that sort of business approach in the NFL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's definitely an interesting move.
How else can you explain it? Like, really?
I don't know. Maybe they're both just tired of their quarterbacks? I don't know.
It doesn't make sense. I think that, you have to keep in mind they also inked Mark Sanchez for 2 more years. I think the Eagles are very high on Mark, and I think that they believe in him to run the system. But I also think he's a safety valve if all of these risky moves that they're trying to do don't work. And I think ultimately what the Eagles want is Mark Sanchez starting, Marcus Mariota competing possibly for that job, as well as learning as much as he can about the system from Mark and Chip, even though he probably knows most of it already from being at Oregon.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, when we talk, they might be going for Marcus Mariota. It's very interesting to think about that because, yeah, they just traded Nick Foles away for Sam Bradford, but at the same time, I feel like LaShawn McCoy could have been the perfect trade bait to move up in the draft up until the first top 6 picks.
Right. That's a great point. And that makes you really think if it had anything to do with their off-season plans, or if they just really don't like LaShawn McCoy. Like, what? I don't get it. I don't know. Maybe Chip knows. Maybe he hasn't spoken much to the media.
No, I don't think he's really spoken at all.
I haven't heard anything, but I know a lot of Eagle fans are really starting to get up in arms about the decisions they're making in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of Eagles fans have not been very happy with the moves they've been making, especially with the Sean McCoy
Jets
deal.
Brought in Brandon Marshall.
They did.
Pretty interesting.
That is the next big trade I want to talk about. Me being a Jets fan, I have a lot to say on this, but mostly what I have to say is that I'm very happy with this deal. If you can get Brandon Marshall for a 5th round pick, do it.
I agree. I mean, I don't understand why any team wouldn't.
And I mean, yeah, they did the same thing to get Santonio Holmes. What was it, like 6 years ago, something like that, 7 years ago? They dealt a 5th round pick to.
Santonio Holmes wasn't as good as everyone expected him to be.
No.
But I also think that he was worth a 5th round pick.
Yeah.
He had a couple good years for them there for sure.
Exactly. Those are the 2 years where they made it to the AFC Championship game. But that aside,
I didn't know they had him at the first. I think they had him for the second one.
The second one, at least. Yeah, the second one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I think the Brandon Marshall deal was great. He's 6'4". He's a big dude. He's very good in the red zone. He had some ridiculous grabs last year for the Bears last year in the end zone when they were threatening in the red zone.
And he was hurt most of last year as well.
He was hurt with a foot injury, I think, the last 5 weeks or something like that.
He played through a lot of injuries.
He played through a lot of it.
Earlier in the year. Him and Alshon Jeffrey both played through injuries.
Yeah, they were both questionable just throughout the whole season.
Best game. That's my
exactly.
point is he could even be better.
Yeah, and the main reason I think they did this, the main reason both teams did this, Chicago to kind of cut a huge salary because they're trying to change things up in Chicago with John Fox and everything. Maybe Jay Cutler's next to go. We don't know yet. He's still on their roster as of now. And then the Jets mainly because they wanted to cut salary as well. And by getting Brandon Marshall, it gave them the wiggle room to cut Percy Harvin, who they dealt for last year. They dealt a 6th round pick for him last year, which would have been a 4th round pick if he was to remain on the roster, I think, until Thursday. It would have become a 4th round pick. So I think it benefited both teams. The Jets, especially because they cleared up $10.5 million by cutting Percy Harvin, which they're no doubt in my mind they're going to be using that to lure Darrelle Revis back, which I would absolutely love. And
clearly about the big bucks, man. That's clearly his mainest motive. First motive.
He's got his Super Bowl ring now, so he doesn't really have that. Oh, I need to go somewhere to win a ring. He has his ring.
Before he got the Super Bowl ring, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a team guy. I think he's a fantastic player, and he's good at what he does, and he gets the most from what he can do. But he's held out tons of times, and he's walking away from a surefire chance to win another Super Bowl in New England for money. And provided he doesn't resign to New England, he still could.
He still could. So they didn't pick up a little
bit, but he's probably leaving.
Yeah, they didn't pick up his $20 million option. It wouldn't surprise me if the Jets offered him $20 million.
Yeah, I could see them doing that. But it wouldn't surprise me if he went to whatever team offered him the most.
Yeah, and from what I hear, the Patriots actually see the Jets as the front runners. And there are a couple other teams that are being tossed around a little bit. I know Oakland has been tossed around a little bit, and Cleveland was tossed around a little bit. I'm not sure if there were any other teams that were brought up in conversations, but those are the two that I read about possibly being suitors. But the two front runners, New England and New York, being the front two from everywhere that I've seen.
It seems like the Jets are doing some exciting moves. Brandon Marshall was the most anticipated. Well, not most anticipated. I'm sorry, the most to be excited about.
Yes.
The most anticipated was the re-signing of David Harris.
And
that's something.
I'm very happy about that because I know that Rex Ryan had contacted David Harris about possibly coming with him up to Buffalo, much like he did with Bart Scott when Bart Scott came to New York from Baltimore.
Right.
So I'm very happy that he's not up in Buffalo, especially since, they lost Kiko Alonso. They have a linebacker opening. But I'm very happy that David Harris is there. He's silently one of the better middle linebackers in the league. He's not one of those names that you talk about, you have the Patrick Willises who just retired. You have guys like him. You have all these other guys that you're always talking about. Oh, this guy. Like David Harris has been very successful, just flown under the radar.
And I also think that Geno Smith should be the man at quarterback for the Jets because I don't think they're in any position. If they are really down on Geno and are looking to get a new franchise quarterback guy, now is not the time to take one. They don't. I don't think for starters, I don't think Merritt will be that 6. And I think if he is, I'm not sure the Jets should take him because it's just not the right time. They don't have the right pieces around him, and there'll be more quarterbacks to come and go, and you have no idea what the kind of move would be. There are rumors the Jets are going to trade for Jay Cutler, which I don't think was ever really that serious. But I think when people saw Marshall come, they thought, why not Cutler as well?
Yeah,
and the truth is, Cutler's future with the Bears remains an awfully strange mystery, especially considering he was signed to a 7-year deal last year, and then all of a sudden he's being hung out to dry by 10 anonymous members of the Bears in the past eras, all criticized Cutler's leadership. They said who they were, number one. And number two, if they all felt that way and felt so strongly about Jay Cutler, why would they agree to a 7-year contract last year? It makes no sense. I don't get it. And I treating Cutler as opposed to Cutler mistreating the Bears. I don't think he is a perfect quarterback. I think he makes mistakes, but I don't think the most interceptions he's thrown in his career, I think, is 18. That's not as much as people realize. I mean, recent 5 years, his career with the Bears, and he threw more with Denver. With the Bears, the most interceptions he threw is 18 in the past 5 years. The guy has a great completion percentage, a great arm. Maybe he does have issues being a leader, but who says that your quarterback has to be a vocal, rah-rah leader type guy? I, for one, know that Eli Manning is the leader of the Giants, and he's nothing like that at all. So I just think he's being mishandled. And if he has an option to leave Chicago, maybe he should. But I also think he deserves a chance with John Fox, who is his coach.
Absolutely. Now, also, in regards to the last thing about the Jets trading for Marshall, it definitely, I think, makes Eric Decker better because Decker was the number one receiver in New York last year, and he was coming out of Denver when Demaryius Thomas was the number one receiver. So Demaryius Thomas was getting all the attention, and then Decker was able to get all these yards because he was open. Now, when he came to New York...
the idea of him playing the slot or playing length on the other side of the field?
Who? Marshall or Decker?
Decker.
Decker on the other side of the field, Jeremy Curley in the slot.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. And then you also have Jason Morrow at tight end. So all of a sudden you have some weapons, and it's all very, very, very suddenly about the offensive line.
Mm-hmm. And they actually just signed a guard today that was from Seattle. They missed out on Mikey Apati, who signed with Arizona. They signed a guard from the Seahawks. I can't remember his name for the life of me right now. But they did do something to bolster that line a little bit, which is great. Now they need another tackle and another guard.
The Giants signed Shane Green. That was their biggest signing of the day.
Yes, that's a big signing of the day.
There are rumors of them, trying to get Cameron Jordan from New Orleans, who suddenly seems like they are.
You mean Jordan Cameron?
Guys left and right. What?
You mean Jordan Cameron?
Yes, Jordan Cameron. Excuse me. I think that they really want to get some sort of pass rusher, but it really does seem like
that is Cameron Jordan. Never mind. Jordan Cameron's a tight end. I always confuse them. Their names.
On the Brown. Forget all that. But the point is, I think that New Orleans is that like that. But more importantly, the fact that they were able, that they traded Jimmy Graham to the Seattle Seahawks, that's crazy. The Seahawks were able to keep Marshawn Lynch, and now they have Jimmy Graham, one of the best tight ends in the NFL. And Russell Wilson's never, ever, ever going to understand what it's like to be on a bad team at this rate.
I'm not going to say Jimmy Graham is one of the best tight ends in the NFL. He is the best tight end in the NFL. He is the
I
best
think
tight end.
Gronkowski is.
I still give it to Graham. Graham is more durable. Gronkowski hasn't played enough.
Graham also isn't a truer tight end. Graham essentially plays wide receiver most of the time.
Yeah. But I mean,
I think that is a better.
Yeah, and you look at this. I mean, Seattle made this deal. They gave up Max Unger, their center, and a first-round pick, which is the 31st overall pick, which is the second to last pick in the first round, for Jimmy Graham, who is.
So, I mean, it looks really bad. That's China, but we don't know who that pick is going to be, and we don't know what's going to happen with New Orleans. It could actually pan out at the end of the day. It's one of those things where you're scratching your head. Favor Seattle, but time will tell.
Yeah, and look at it this way. If Jimmy Graham was on the team in the Super Bowl last year, who do you think that ball was going to?
That's what I was really thinking. I really still think that play, if they could have someone that could run that route and not, allow it to get intercepted, even though I don't think it's anyone's fault but Russell Wilson's, maybe it would have worked out for them.
And from what I'm hearing, New Orleans was shopping Jimmy Graham because they apparently very much mishandled the salary cap the last couple of years because they gave Jimmy Graham this ridiculous extension. And that kind of shot them in the foot salary cap wise. But moving on, I know that you don't have much time left, so let's try and fit a whole bunch of stuff into like the next 8 minutes.
Not possible, man. There's a ton of things going on. It looks like Antrell Roll is going to be leaving New York. It hasn't been confirmed, but the Chicago Bears are a huge front runner to get him, and he met with them, and Antrell Roll canceled his interview with Michael Kay today. There's a lot of weird things going on with him. And it really, really, really looks like he's not going to be a Giant, which is a shame because he's a captain, he's a great leader. And he personally won mine simply for the reason that he did not back down. He always gave it his all. He played through injuries. And arguably his best quality was, even though he was great at coverage and, interceptions and all that, he tackled people. He did not miss tackles. He read the defense really well. He filled gaps. He would run across the field. He was 100 miles an hour. If you want a guy who's looking to work, you're going to get an intro role. So hopefully, maybe he'll be a Giant, but it really doesn't look like it's going to be.
All right, so I'm going to just run through a couple things quickly, and then we'll touch more on them. Back to the Eagles. They traded Nick Foles to St. Louis for Sam Bradford and a pick. They also lost Jeremy Maclin to Kansas City, and they're reportedly going to let go of Dwayne Bowe. And I think Jeremy Maclin is an improvement, but it's going to be a shame because Dwayne Bowe has been a very quiet player, but he's been very good, in my opinion. Not last year when the receiver just had no touchdowns for whatever reason. I don't know whose fault that is.
I don't think it's that he was. I think he's just very team-oriented, and I think Alex Smith is a conservative quarterback.
And the fact you have Jamal Charles, you kind of can't shy away from him.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Also, some other big things that happened. Frank Gore was originally supposed to sign with Philly for 3 years. However, he wound up signing with Indianapolis for 3 years. What do you think of that one?
I mean, I'm surprised that someone with that much wear and tear on him was signing for 3 years anyway. And I think that it's actually a good sign. But I see him as an immediate impact and not something like I can't see him doing that well in his third year of his contract if he even makes it that far.
Yeah, I mean he's 31 years old.
But the Colts were desperate. Exactly, and the Colts were desperate for a running back, and they have arguably a future Hall of Famer in Frank Gore. So I think it's a good signing for them, and I think only initially.
Yeah, I think the backfield there is going to consist of him and Ahmad Bradshaw kind of sharing the load, and Trent Richardson being out onto his third team in the last 4 years.
You want to talk about a running back with wear and tear on him, you have to talk about Ahmad Bradshaw. That guy has foot injuries left and right, knee injuries, hip injuries, shoulder injuries, wrist injuries. This guy is a beast as far as playing through pain, but I don't know how much more that guy can take. So he is not a valuable option for them in Indianapolis at all. If he can do, he's been surprisingly resilient time and time again, and I want him to do well. But that is a big part of why they were even getting Frank Gore in the first place, was the uncertainty behind Ahmad Bradshaw.
Yep. And I really think Trent Richardson is going to be on his way out, even though they dealt a first-round pick for him 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's not a good situation, him in Indianapolis.
Poor Trent. I was so high on him coming out of the draft.
He was given plenty of chances in Indianapolis. That's the thing. He was given plenty of opportunities to succeed and did not. Mm-hmm. So I don't feel bad for him. Maybe he could be working harder. Maybe he just didn't fit. I'm sure there are teams that would love to give him a tryout and see what he's able to do. And speaking of potential tryouts, we have to at least mention that our good friend Tim Tebow is trying to come back to the NFL.
Timmy Teebs!
He's expected to be part of the Veterans Combine, and he's being coached by Tom Brady's quarterback coach. So we'll keep a minimal eye on Tim Tebow and possibly bring him up in episodes to come.
If he's to sign somewhere, we're going to talk about it.
Yeah. With the exception of him being on 3 teams, I'm going to root for him wherever he ends up. So.
Oh, I love Tim Tebow. If you want to talk about a great story, that's a great story.
Yeah, he works for you. I agree.
Yeah. So any other big moves you want to talk about, or we pretty much covered all the bases on that one?
There's definitely some moves we missed. I mean, Haloti Ngata is a Detroit Lion.
Yes, they were.
Exciting. And Ndamukong Suh signed with Miami.
Oh wow! How do we forget Ndamukong Suh?
Well, he's the biggest guy, and he signed a crap ton of money, and I think it's a great signing for Miami. But at that price, anyone should do that. But the good news is Suh has a great charity in the Suh Foundation, so I think that it'll help his charity a lot. Mm. And the bad news is Jet fans are going to have to see Ndamukong Suh twice a year.
Oh, I'm not looking forward to that, but I think Nick Mangold can handle it.
But I also think that it's going to be an exciting NFL season, and there's still many more moves to come. And Haloti Ngata as a Lion, that's probably the best replacement you could possibly get for Ndamukong Suh in such short notice.
Oh yeah,
that is arguably the second best defensive tackle in the NFL.
Yeah, I'd say so. And now I'm going to throw out some big free agent names, and you tell me where you think they're going to wind up. Reggie Wayne.
Sure. He might retire. He might retire.
My money's on retirement also, but if you had to pick him going somewhere, where would you say?
I want him to go to like Tennessee and torch the Colts, because I think that what the Colts did for him is terrible. But he is too classy a guy, so I think he'll just. I can see him going to Denver and playing with Peyton Manning again if he decides to keep playing.
I could see if he decides to keep playing. I could see him going to Denver or even like to New England or somewhere like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like a great quarterback.
C.J. Spiller.
Ooh, he was originally rumored to meet with the Giants, but since the Giants went with Shane Vereen, his situation is certainly up in the air. I can see him signing with a team that already has an established running back, maybe someone like the Chicago Bears. They're still looking at Forte, obviously, but they're still looking for pieces as they who knows what their mentality is for this year, whether they're looking to go ahead of the future or this year. But I don't know. I can see him maybe being a Bear.
I could see him maybe going to the Jets and be reunited with Chan Gailey, who he has actually said he wants to play for Chan Gailey again. I can see that happening.
You brought that up, but I'm surprised it hasn't come up yet today.
Yeah. I could also see him possibly going down to Dallas if they are unable to re-sign DeMarco Murray.
And if they're unable to sign DeMarco Murray, where do you see DeMarco Murray?
DeMarco Murray? Philly.
No way.
No, I'm joking. I'm kidding. No, not at all. I could see DeMarco. He's if Dallas, comes out and says, we're not going to be able to make a deal somehow. I could see him going to maybe an Oakland who would be willing to pay for him.
Yeah, I could see happening. You know why? Because it's a mistake. I'm telling you, DeMarco Murray's a good running back, but also benefits of a very good offensive line, arguably the best in the NFL. I'd say the best in the NFL. I think the Dallas Cowboys are actually doing something smart and saying, you know what, we can't pay this guy this money. We just can't. So for someone like that,
I could see him going to Oakland, Jacksonville, or
right, a bad team,
or even like
bad.
a bad team that needs help, or maybe even like Detroit.
Well, Oakland's got a ton of money to spend, and I can see them spending it on a big name. Marco Murray is certainly a big name. But let's not forget that before last year, he was wildly injury prone.
Oh, absolutely.
And he had a historic year this year. But he had a ton of injuries, and this year he had a great year behind one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. So if you're going to pay what he's expecting, you're not going to get what that money's saying. You're not going to get that value. So I think if they can talk him down, it'd be a good signing. But if he's going to go top dollar, which is what I think will happen, I can see it going to Oakland.
Yeah, coming off the year that he had, I could see him going to like Jacksonville, Oakland, or even Minnesota if they decide to release Adrian Peterson if he's reinstated into the NFL.
Adrian Peterson. There's a man who might be a Dallas Cowboy.
I can see that happening because he definitely come with a.
Play through Jerry Jones. It don't happen, and these moves are still unfolding as we speak, and we'll have a lot more to talk about in a week.
And
before we go, I do have to mention that the puck is about to drop pretty soon at the Coliseum, and I want to talk about at least a little bit of Islanders Rangers before we end this week.
Before we go to that, I just forgot one thing. I know I just mentioned Jacksonville, but they signed Julius Thomas to a big deal.
They did, and I think he's more of a receiver than he's a tight end. I was saying about Jimmy Graham earlier, but that's because they do the exact same thing. They line up really tight, but they don't even get in a 3-point stance. That's a wide receiver.
Yeah, I also kind of think that he benefited greatly from having Peyton Manning throw to him. But we'll see what happens in Jacksonville.
I think he's good, but I think he's in an unfortunate place. Maybe he can help Bortles, though. Bortles is pretty good. I think Bortles is a good quarterback, but he's still getting there.
Yep. And now the final game between Islanders and Rangers. Talk about it quickly.
Oh, yeah. I mean, last night, our good friend and fearless leader, John Tavares, in overtime, the Islanders were down 3-1. They tied it up 3-3. And with 28 seconds left, 26 seconds left, something like that, the Islanders desperately made their last change. They wanted their first line on the game. And John Tavares got the puck, and he did not let anyone take it from him. He went to the corner, he went up, he went around, he went in front of the crease, boom, shot, overtime, game winner, right in front of his parents. His mommy and daddy were there in Toronto. It was beautiful. It was a great moment. And now, because of that win, the Rangers cannot take first place from the Islanders if they win tonight. They'll be a point behind. So, wow, what an exciting win for the Islanders. And this game tonight, it's going to be wild, man. It's a big deal. I really hope that everyone and their mother is really hoping that these two teams play again in the playoffs. But there's a chance that this is the last ever Islander-Ranger game at Nassau Coliseum. So, personally, I'm rooting for them. And but that all that Ranger hatred and Islander love aside, this is going to be a special evening in a special place. And if you're at the game, just make a memory of it. I really hope that it's a good one.
Mm-hmm. Sound like you're tearing up a little bit over there.
I'm all right. I mean, I was more tearing up when I saw Patrick Willis's Dubai speech. He retired from the San Francisco.
Yeah, he said
8 years, which I was shocked that he retired. But that was a sad speech. Watching a really strong grown man cry it's hard on you. It's hard on the eyes.
He's one of those class acts. He's a class act.
Oh yeah.
And he said,
Eli Manning for a year.
And he said, I'm retiring happy. So good for him. He's not forced to retire. He's going out on his terms. He's retiring happy. So good for him.
And we're not forced to end our show, but we're choosing to on our own terms. So that's how we're going to end our show. We're going to end our show the Patrick Willis way. So hopefully this wasn't too unbearable for the audio or the emotion or whatever it was. But we're going to have to do more of this on Ubu for a little while. And I hope you guys enjoyed the show.
Yep, hope you guys enjoyed. Until next time, I'm Chris.
And I'm Anthony.
We're the Super Sports Bros.